Welcome back to the second video in my PMP Prep series. If you're here, you're probably juggling a lot of different things in your life, like work and family responsibilities, and you're planning on preparing for your PMP exam. I know it can be very overwhelming, but I can assure you, you're not alone. My name is Nimka. I'm a PMP certified project manager with over 10 years of experience. And I have mentored my fellow project managers to pass their PMP exam in the last couple of years. So last week I made a video on some helpful resources for you to pass your exam, such as books, courses, practice tests, mock tests, and any other resources that can be helpful. In today's video, we're going to talk about some time management techniques and how to create a study plan that is effective and works for you, and how to stay motivated and inspired even sometimes you feel a little overwhelmed and don't feel like going. Alright, managing your time is one of the most important things when you prepare for your exam, because PMP exam prep is not the only thing happening in your life, right? With work and family, all the other responsibilities, you're going to need some good chunk of time so that you can focus on preparing for your exam. So the very first thing that I suggest to do is do a time inventory. Find out where your time is going and how much time are you spending in a given day for your other responsibilities, especially in the early morning hours and late night hours. How are we manage those times so that we can do some study there? On the screen here, you see a table with doing that inventory. So you can do with hours, how many hours you're working and how many hours you're spending for family time and all those things. But you can go in little detail and see how much time, how many minutes you're spending on certain things. And the reason that we want to do it is because sometimes we tell ourselves, well, we don't have time. I'm spending so much time doing this. But when we really slow down and look at those times, even in minutes intervals, we sometimes spend a lot of time on our phones or, doing those tasks that are not necessarily the most helpful or productive, but we just spend a lot of time on it. That's why filling out this table is going to help you see how much time you're spending on your other tasks and where you can carve out that time. Now, identify those hours that you can do the studying, whether it's early morning hours, late nights, weekends. And one of the important things is to make sure to inform your stakeholders, as known as your family members, friends, and your work boss, your colleagues, and let them know that you are preparing for an exam and you're ready to level up your skills here. I wake up around 4:50, 5 o'clock, and up until work starts, I have several hours to do some study session, of course, family times, getting my toddler ready for his daycare, do all those things. And during lunch hour, how can you spend half hour, maybe you're doing some reading session or doing some practice tests. If you can do that, that'll be very helpful. And of course, at the end of the day, and it's understandable, it's really hard to open a book and read and understand it because we're exhausted. At the end of the day, just so much happened. But we also want to remember that why this exam is important to you, and passing this exam and having a certification, how is it going to help you achieve your goals in the long term? So sometimes we have to push ourselves a little bit to get into that mindset. One of my favorite concepts I like to use is the Eisenhower matrix. So basically, you divide up a page into 4 quadrants. And the very first quadrant is something that you have to do now. And on the second quadrant, something that are very important to you, but you can set aside some time, do it later. It's helpful for you in the long term. And the third quadrant, that's where all those urgent things, right? Returning a call, writing an email, all those things that need your attention right now, but not necessarily the most helpful. And on the last quadrant, that's where being on social media or watching Netflix and TV shows and all those things that are fun, but not necessarily helpful for you to prepare for the exam at the moment. Let's put it into practice. Let's grab a sheet and divide it up into 4 quadrants and figure out what tasks needs to happen now and what tasks can happen later, or something if you can delegate, go ahead. And if there's a task that you see is not necessarily helpful to you, let them go. So next, we're going to move on to creating a study plan. For me, the most helpful tip was to simply write down all the things that needs to happen and put it in a time frame. So let's say in the first 3 weeks I'm going to read PMBOK, and in the first 4 months perhaps I go through the course along with reading the PMBOK, because there are a lot of these subjects they align. So I watch the course and then go back and read the PMBOK a little bit, and then spend another 3 weeks to read the Agile Guide, and etc. And however that works for you the best, set aside a certain time frame that you're going to work on a certain task. And if you give yourself a deadline, we're going to be really helpful, because you know that you need to get that task done within that time frame. And another tip that I have for you is a Pareto principles. So that's basically you spend 80% of your time on the 20% of the topic that is going to be the most helpful. And in this scenario, it's going to be your Agile questions, taking pretty much 50% of your questions. So make sure to spend time reading the Agile Guide, go through Agile questions, practice tests, and really understand the scenario and how you can apply that into your work practice. So it's having that PMP mindset is what really going to be helpful. One of my favorite technique is called Pomodoro technique. So basically it's working for 25-minute long and take 5-minute break. And it really helps with cutting those tasks into smaller chunks. And I have this small Pomodoro clock that I ordered off of Amazon, and I would just put 25 minutes of work, and when it rings I'll just put another 5 minutes to take a small break. One of the questions I wanted to ask when I was preparing for my PMP exam was, what are the important tasks within a given time frame? So I created a little visual here for you. So let's say you are going to take your exam within the next 2 to 6 months. So in that time frame, complete all your 35-hour course, read the PMBOK 6 and 7, and Agile Practice Guide is a must, and review all the tools and techniques, the inputs and outputs, and the processes that is mentioned in the PMBOK 6 and 7. And take some notes. Now, 4 weeks before the exam, start preparing for the simulation exams. So sit for 4 hours for the mock test and see what's it like to really just sit down for 4 hours straight to take the exam, because it can be a little challenging. While you're doing the practice tests and mock exams, make sure to review all the correct and the wrong answers that you went through, and really understand why it was correct and why it was wrong. And reviewing a PMP mindset is also an important thing, because naturally when in the everyday practice, when we answer the question, we think, oh, well, this is what I'm going to do in my everyday practice. But in a PMP mindset, it's a little different. So I really want to emphasize that. And a week before, review all your notes and make sure to review all the formulas and do more practice tests and mock exams. Again, continue reviewing your PMP mindset. And the day before, I highly recommend you to stop studying. Exam is the next day. I want to make sure everything is prepared. I want to remember everything. But when we put too much pressure on ourselves to remember those things, sometimes our brain is just too exhausted. So stop studying is actually going to help your brain to take a break and start fresh the next day. If you are taking the test in person, make sure to put that on your map and make sure that where you go, like all the directions, because it also can be a little stressful on the day you're trying to find that out. And if you're taking the exam virtually, make sure to set up your workspace. Check in your camera, microphone, and make sure to read through all the guidelines they provide you for taking the exam online. And on the day, wake up early, have a healthy, nice, light breakfast, make sure to stretch your body, and bring your ID, a water, a snack, the things that are helpful for you. And lastly, remember that you're going to do a great job. And my last tip in this section of planning is to track your progress. Whether you use a simple sheet or a planner or even a mobile app like Microsoft To Do is one of my favorites, because you just list all those tasks that you need to get done and check them as you go. How do you maintain motivation when you're preparing for the exam? One of my favorite is when I was going through the exam prep, Andrew Ramdial, my course instructor, talked about how he encourages his students to write down on a piece of paper the goals and the aspiration they have after passing the exam. So if it's your goal to have a higher paying job, so write down how much you're going to make, or write down a specific number of I'm going to be making $150,000 a year, and write that down and put it on your nightstand and basically read it every single day. And I really love that because it just gives that visual reminder of what is the goal. Keeping yourself motivated sometimes can be a little challenging because a lot happening, right? A life, work, and now you're tired and you're trying to create a time to study, and sometimes spend a lot of your time over the weekend just for studying and feeling a little guilty to not spend as much time with your family and friends. But we have to remember, or why is it that important for you to pass this exam in the long term? And another thing that I love to do is to celebrate a milestone. Let's say you went through your 35-hour course, and give yourself a little pat on the back and give yourself a half-day break, and perhaps take yourself out for a coffee or grab something that you like. And my last tip is to avoid burnout. And yes, the continuous studying sometimes just becomes monotonous. So at that time, taking a little break and spending time with your family and go out for a walk and do things that you usually like to do really helps. Having a peer support is going to be important. When I was preparing for my exam, unfortunately, I did all on my own. And at the time I was thinking, it would just be so nice to have an accountability partner so that we can come together and talk about the topics, or, share the struggles and give each other a tip. And really understood that throughout the process. I recommend my mentees to make sure to find an accountability partner. And one of the most helpful things for me and for my mentees was a PMI chapter. So we're all a volunteer or a member of a PMI chapter. And then we would find these people that were preparing for their PMP exam and try to connect them so that they can come together and do the preparation together. So if you're looking for something like that, definitely leave a comment section below. I can share some tips on that as well. All right, I hope this video was helpful for you to stay on top of your PMP exam prep tasks. And I wish you all the luck in the world. I know you're going to do a great job. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I've got quite a few cool videos coming your way. Let me know in the comment section, what was the most challenging task or process for you to prepare for a PMP exam? I am curious about it.